He actually plays a Native American guy that agrees to be in a snuff film to pay off his family.
Oh, the Lone Ranger?
Yes, the Lone Ranger. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
Yo, hello.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Scher.
Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to go right into the movie club and talk about established directors who took a turn.
Yeah.
You can find me in the club.
You should join our club. You and your friend.
Now, if you're not going to take this seriously, perhaps we should disband the club now.
I love being a part of things.
And it did it either for the better or maybe it did it for the worst, but we kind of enjoy that kind of movie. But who wants to kick us off
So
on
this
this
is inspired by Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, which by the time this is aired has just come out the previous weekend. And Nolan has shown that he has range from Memento, The Prestige, the Batman movies, but he definitely hasn't tackled like a big war movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's doing it presumably in a very different way.
Yeah.
Like it's more suspense. It's more, this story that I actually wasn't aware of, but every kid in England apparently knows about this story. And because of that, we wanted to take kind of examples of directors that are known for something and that take a completely different turn. One of the best, I think, in this type of thing, we're going to go through our best or favorite underseen and underrated. One of the best, I think, is Brian De Palma doing the first Mission Impossible movie. And this could go, the Mission Impossible franchise could go on this list for, all the directors, basically. But De Palma certainly was known for his, his pacing, his suspense, his really dark kind of bent, and definitely not like a populist action movie.
He was mainly known for thrillers, horror, and the Untouchables.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the Untouchables, is his masterpiece movie. That was really his. I feel like his only foray into like big studio filmmaking before this was the Untouchables. Everything else behind this, I mean, maybe you could consider them big studio movies, but they weren't. They weren't like trying for anything.
Yeah, I mean, was Scarface like a huge picture when it came out? I don't know.
I guess it might have been. I mean, I might be discounting Scarface like I always do. But I mean, he could at least do these gangster type. He had done this type of movie, that type of movie before. He'd never done like a this is what I'm really trying to get to, a pop entertainment summer popcorn flick.
Yeah,
before. He had never really done anything like that. And man, this was the first time I remember seeing a director of his caliber given material like this. And I remember watching Mission Impossible going, man, the scenes, the way they're shot in this is something completely different from what I've ever seen in any summer blockbuster before.
Well, and his past really serves him well on this movie, I think, because he brings a little bit of that thriller kind of paranoia to the film and to Ethan Hunt's character. But yeah, a complete departure from what we're used to seeing from him. And in my opinion, a big home run.
Those close-ups when Ethan Hunt is confronting the agent and he's like, "You've never seen me upset." And it's just right on their faces before that huge explosion. It's great.
Terrific use of widescreen. Like, I don't think a lot of times when people decide to shoot a movie in scope, which is the 2:3:5:1 format, that they really implement it in a way that is interesting in any way. Like they're just trying to get that big, huge, that's an awesome, huge Vista screen type of thing or whatever. Like I want to shoot some amazing cinematography. Sometimes they do it. Sometimes they just want to have they just want to have the space. I don't know. They're not using the space like De Palma does in Mission Impossible. Like there's so many scenes in there where there's stuff happening over in the corner. Yeah. He gives details in the movie without expressing them like, some, dumb movie would or whatever. It's just kind of in the background a lot of times or just off to the side. And you're not really like your eyes might be trained on one part of the screen, but there's other stuff going on.
Yeah.
Even during the opening scene where they're just, you see someone like pouring something in a drink and they're going to give that to the guy that they're trying to get the information from and everything. That's just in the background.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I got another one lined up.
Okay.
All right.
John Favreau and Chef.
Oh.
And even though his first movie was kind of a smaller movie, he directed Made with Vince Vaughn. I think that was his first directing effort. Everything else he's known for before Chef is stuff like Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Cowboys and Aliens, Zathura.
Yeah.
And it's all this stuff that's either like big budget or actiony or lots of CGI. And then he turns around and makes one of the most intimate human movies of the last several years. It's almost like he intentionally said, I'm going to go do the opposite of what I've been doing for the last few movies and see what happens. And it turned out to be gold. It's a little saccharine at the end, but I just find this movie so watchable. You wouldn't think watching a few guys in a truck making Cubans would be this much fun. But it really is, and it makes you want to eat Cuban sandwiches.
Oh, my God, man. I was like on a plane watching Chef, and I was like, is there a way for that truck to be here?
Can Uber Eats deliver to the sky?
Even when I landed, I knew there was no way that I could find that truck because it's in a movie, right? But I was on a plane thinking, well, damn, if I wasn't on this plane, I could get to the awesome Chef truck. No, it's just in the movie.
I love that movie so much.
Yeah, it's so great.
What's cool is at the beginning, him showing off his skills, like his knife skills, where he's not even looking down. He's just doing this rapid chop and everything.
Well, and his cooking skills, because that's hammered home in the next scene where he's basically told, no, you do not get to experiment. We're doing the same menu we've done for 40 years, and you're going to bring out the chocolate lava cake and everything else. But we've already just seen he's so much more talented than that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Quentin Tarantino and Inglourious Bastards.
Ooh. Nice one.
Quentin Tarantino and Inglourious Bastards. Remember, he's been known to this point, before Inglourious Bastards, of doing these crime, action, exploitation, homage type movies up to this point. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, Kill Bill. I didn't know that he had this World War II movie in him. I mean, this is at a grander scale than anything he had ever done, and he did it effortlessly.
Yeah.
That whole opening scene, I know that you say that's one of your favorite opening scenes of all time. I think it's one of mine too. I did not know. I knew Tarantino had a gift for dialogue, and I knew that he had a love of cinema that just sort of like came through in all of his crime thriller. I thought he was sort of relegated to that, though.
Yeah.
And to do something like this, and it has obviously his stamp on it, but I did not know he had that movie in it.
No. I just read yesterday he's about to stretch again. It looks like he's taking early meetings to make a Sharon Tate movie.
The Manson murders. Yeah.
And I guess he's already talking to Jennifer Lawrence and a couple other people, but it would be the first movie he's ever made based on a true story, which would, I'm sure would have his stamp, but that's going to be another stretch because he's used to being able to create the entire world himself with the pen, and now he's going to have to sort of rely on history and facts and then Tarantinoize that.
Yeah, I know. And that story is so bonkers that it probably suits him as much as anything else.
If he's going to do a true story, this is probably the best one for him to do. Yeah. I would agree with that.
But the thing with Inglourious Bastards is he did it in his way. He didn't have these big, huge battle scenes and shit like that. Like he knew his limitations, but it set it in a completely different genre. It's a great pick.
Yeah, and you have both that opening scene and the scene in the bar with Fassbender that I think show off directing talent. His previous movies didn't really show that much. Like you said, he had a gift for dialogue and quirky characters and settings and violence, but just the raw tension building, that takes talent, right? You can't just do that. You can't set up a camera and capture tension the way he does. Two different occasions, three actually, if you count the scene when they're eating the cream and the pastry in the restaurant. It's just, it really grew a lot when he made this movie, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sort of the thing that I think that's sort of the fantasy casting thing that you do a lot of times with directors. You're like, man, it'd be cool to see Martin Scorsese do a horror movie.
Yeah.
Or, it'd be fun to see, this director who's really known for this one thing go into another genre and see if they can just knock that out of the park, because it would be awesome to see what Scorsese's take would be on, say, Friday the 13th or something like that. Would he be able to elevate the material in some way that we hadn't thought of before? And would it be something that's worth watching? You know, because obviously every Friday the 13th that has come out, even the first one, they're not very good movies.
No,
that one was just on yesterday, and I watched Kevin Bacon get an arrow through the throat.
Oh yeah.
Everybody dies differently in that movie. One chick gets an axe to the face. He gets an arrow to the throat. That's a weird movie.
That was the funny thing that was when we met with David Wong from Cracked.
Oh yeah.
Well, he was talking about how like all the different things that Jason would have had to do to set up these deaths and everything. Like that was a really funny thing that he went through.
It is pretty preposterous.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other best, or we want to go to the favorite?
Well, I guess we could do honorable mentions later on.
Yeah, we'll do the honorable mentions later. So let's go on to our favorites.
My favorite is, I think it is a stretch for him. It's Gus Van Sant doing Good Will Hunting. Because Gus Van Sant was very artsy. He was super artsy. He's been artsy since then when he did Elephant and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So this was, I think, a big departure. Even though these were two unknowns, it's a slice of life story. It's like, boy genius story. Got a huge star in Robin Williams and everything. And it's outside of his typical purview. He did music videos before. He did To Die For, which is kind of like a film noir almost.
It's got elements of it.
Yeah. And Good Will Hunting as just a populist type of film was a big departure.
Well, there's always something weird and creepy and sexual about a Gus Van Sant movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like my older brother and my friend Josh's older brother watched My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah.
Said, don't ever watch that. We did. We regretted it. This has none of that. This could have been a Coppola film.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like in terms like Rainmaker. I don't know why I just went right to another Matt Damon. But,
came out the same year.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you are a wealth of information.
Yeah, it came out. It was like sort of the precursor to Good Will Hunting. Was the Rainmaker came out, and everybody's like, "Who's this Matt Damon fellow?"
Mm-hmm.
And then Good Will Hunting came out, and it was like, "Oh yeah, I enjoyed him in the Rainmaker, kind of."
Interesting. But yeah, it's almost like he takes his stamp off of this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know what? I was actually reading an interview with him, and he said, I'm going to make this. He's really a fan of anonymous art, and he said, I want to put this out there for the people, basically. I don't want it to necessarily be a Gus Van Sant movie, which is a huge departure for him, because obviously every other thing that he's done, including the ill-conceived Psycho remake,
right,
has had his stamp on it.
Came out the following year.
Yeah, exactly. I actually read an article where he was defending that, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how you still can, but yeah, so it definitely a departure and one of my favorites for sure.
Great. Good call.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a little bit of an odd pick here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say Jonathan Frakes.
You and your Star Trek.
Will Riker from Star Trek The Next Generation, who, as that show was on, began directing episodes of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And he still is mostly a television episode director. If you IMDb him on his directing list, he's done a lot of shows that in the last 20 years where he's guest directed here and there and what have you. But then he really stretched when they made First Contact, a movie with the Next Generation cast. And in a lot of ways, it's not a stretch when you think about, he's very comfortable with these people. He's directed them before. They all know each other. But in terms of budget and scale and story, an episode of TV is completely different than a 2-hour movie, even if the cast is the same. And First Contact is just so good.
It is.
It's just really, really fun. It's got the perfect moments of drama. The Borg is probably one of the best villains they ever created in that show. And it's a big home run, and it was a risk. I don't think anybody knew when they hired him that he was going to do great, because after that he made Insurrection, which is terrible. So I mean, anyway, that's one of my favorite movies to watch, and I always kind of smile thinking, well, Jonathan Frakes directed this.
This was the first Next Generation movie besides Generations, right?
Yes, they did Generations with Shatner, it's a big flaming turd, and then they reset with this, and then everything they did after that was bad. Yeah. Because they did Nemesis and Insurrection.
Nemesis was the last one out of that first generation or Next Generation set of movies. I still haven't seen Nemesis.
Young Tom Hardy. Skinny young Tom Hardy.
I heard that was a really bad movie. So
it's terrible. He's playing a clone of Jean-Luc Picard.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
That's why they cast it, because he looked like what they thought Picard would look like when he was younger.
Okay.
It's not a good movie.
Yeah,
First
sure
Contact
Patrick
is
Stewart was
solid.
fine with it.
It would be an interesting study to figure out, how much Frakes had to do with First Contact. Is it is it a strong script? Is it the Borg, like you're talking about? Because the Borg, everything I ever saw with the Borg was great.
Yeah.
And then with Insurrection, is that really his fault? Is it just another machine churning out a Star Trek script? And
I think we can blame F. Murray Abraham for that one.
absolutely. Fuck F. Murray Abraham. Fuck that guy. That's what his F stands for. But yeah, it'd be interesting because, you're right. It's so different from between TV and movies. You got so much of a bigger budget. You have more time. You have
probably 300 more employees and crew that you got to keep track of and all that stuff.
Yeah. So I know a lot of these directors, man, you see some of their credits. It's like they've just for hire TV guy, and they must make some serious money doing that.
I bet they
man.
do. I bet they do.
These guys do like 2 episodes of CSI and then 3 episodes of Law and Order. And it's like, Jesus, how much money do you get for all that?
There's a lot of scope in First Contact, too, because you got the stuff on Earth, and you've got the Borg, and then you've got the regular Federation stuff.
And the stuff that's on Earth, we've gone back in time here, a little bit like the Voyage Home. But that's like, he's discovered, James Cromwell is discovering warp travel for the first time, and he's going to be seen by the Vulcans, who are thankfully a peaceful race who will make first contact. And so there's scale there for the entire universe of Star Trek.
Yeah.
They've got to help this motherfucker get his ship off the ground, or else they're going to probably evaporate like Marty in Back to the Future. So,
I'm going to go with Spike Lee and Inside Man.
That is such a great pick.
This is a perfect answer.
Another movie where, Spike Lee, all through the 90s, he had these, you have either racially charged dramas like Do the Right Thing, Malcolm X. He did Clockers, which I never saw, but
Jungle Fever.
He never really did anything for a pop audience.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't do anything for everybody. Inside Man is the first time I remember him doing something for everybody. And man, what a great movie that is.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's like way smarter than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it could have been such a simple movie, and probably still would have entertained, but there's so much layer and misdirection and intrigue going on here that it just keeps you riveted all the way through. Of course, Denzel's awesome in everything he does. Jodie Foster's usually pretty great. Clive Owen is pretty much always awesome.
Yeah.
Probably helps to get a great cast. But what a great movie, and it's the least Spike Lee-ness movie I ever did see him make.
He went out and he said, you know what, I can do anything like the other guys can do. I'm going to do a pop entertainment type movie and then and just bag it and tag it.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, man. It was and I was really surprised when I saw that he was directing that.
Yeah.
When I saw those trailers, I was like, what?
Well, and within the movie, you can see a little bit of his touches, like Denzel's dialogue, the racial tension or the racial stuff that they throw in when they're out in the car and everything. And, some of the interviews, things like that. But, yeah, it's just a complete departure. It's a great movie.
Good call.
Absolutely. All right. Underseen.
Underseen. So I've got a really underseen one. It's The Ninth Gate.
Oh.
Okay.
Roman Polanski directed. Donnie Jepp?
Donnie Jepp? Johnny Depp?
Oh, he was totally in it. Donnie Jepp was totally in that movie.
Is Johnny Depp in that movie?
Yeah, Johnny Depp is in that movie.
Donnie Jepp is not.
Donnie Jepp is totally different actor.
He's the non-union Mexican equivalent.
That's right. Steven Spielberg.
But so this is Roman Polanski, who's probably most famous for Rosemary's Baby and Chinatown and things like that. And at this point he was in Europe, exiled basically for his misconduct here. But found a way to make this really interesting movie about like sacred books and rare books and things like that. It's not the greatest movie that you'll ever see, but it's a huge departure, very underseen, and a really good performance from Johnny Depp. Frank Langella's in it. It's just an interesting story.
Is this a Satan movie?
Yes.
Well, I don't generally go for the Satan movies.
Yeah.
This is probably because of my conservative Christian upbringing where I was terrified of hell. But if a movie looks to me like the devil's a main character, I generally avoid it, except for Al Pacino.
Yeah.
But like when it's actually going to be like demonic, like that one Paul Bettany made with the angels and demons fighting, I don't go to any of that.
Legion?
Oh, yeah.
Was that what that
Legion.
movie?
Yeah.
Did you not like Rosemary's Baby?
Never saw it.
Ah.
Oh, Rosemary's Baby is definitely terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I don't think I've seen The Ninth Gate. I could have. It's one of those movies that's a blur for me.
Mhm.
I know that I was working at Hollywood 27 when it came out, and it was a movie we didn't get.
Oh,
and
really?
it was very strange not to get those type of movies. Now, it could have been that I believe it was Artisan Entertainment that was behind Ninth Gate, who did Blair Witch Project. They may have wanted too much of the opening weekend, even though that movie wasn't going to do anything.
Mhm.
So we just didn't get it, and I never saw it.
Yeah.
So I can't really confirm or deny whether your pick is good.
No, it's interesting because what I'm getting mostly to is that it does not look like a Roman Polanski movie. Besides that it's set in Europe and that kind of thing. It's very unlike his normal stuff, and it's a good watch.
Okay.
I'm going to go with, in a cheating answer, the most underseen movie of all time. Because no one has seen this movie. Because it hasn't been made yet.
Oh.
And that's World War Z2.
That's a cheat right there.
I know. And David Fincher. Because a year from now, this would be my answer. Because how the fuck is David Fincher making World War Z2?
That is crazy.
He doesn't do sequels. He doesn't do zombie movies.
Probably because of Brad Pitt, right?
It's got to be. I mean, they've made so many movies together. Their relationship must be good enough that they've come up with something they want to do.
I imagine he went to him personally and said, "Would you please direct this movie?"
Maybe. They made a shit ton of money on that first movie. They were going to make a sequel regardless. And I'll watch anything David Fincher makes. He could make The Ninth Gate 2, and I would watch, starring Donnie Jepp, and I would watch it.
Yep.
Okay, so my real answer is Clint Eastwood and Space Cowboys.
Yeah.
Because this is a movie that has fallen off the map completely. Most people who even consider themselves movie fans probably haven't seen Space Cowboys.
Right.
And I'm not saying you should, although I do think it's a fun time. Basically, you got 4 old astronauts from 40 years prior who, for some reason the movie makes up, have to be shot back up into space. It's Clint Eastwood. It's Tommy Lee Jones. I forget the other two. That's how forgettable the movie is. Now, I remember smiling and laughing. There are young astronauts going on the mission with them. So basically, this movie was made for people who are my parents' age. It's made for the senior citizen crowd who are going to laugh at all the jokes of like Clint Eastwood creaking after he does an exercise. Or
it's the Wild Hogs crowd.
It basically is, that's it. It's Wild Hogs in space.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm putting this on this stretching is that I basically, when I hear Clint Eastwood's name as a director, I always think drama. Always. From Unforgiven to Mystic River to $1 Million Baby to Letters from Iwo Jima to Gran Torino. He's always making dramas. And here in the middle of all of it, he made this goofy geriatric comedy.
Is it really a comedy? I didn't know.
Yeah,
if
it's a comedy.
No kidding.
By the way, the other people in this, Donald Sutherland, James Garner, and guess who? James Cromwell.
He's going to come up 92 times today.
That's right. James Cromwell, official friend of the show now.
Yes.
I think this is what started the codger genre.
Yeah.
Because this is where you started getting these like old guys go to Vegas, old guys, go to this, or old guys it's always some sort of thing like, well, there's not enough movies out there for the 60-year-old set.
Bucket List is part of this crowd.
Bucket List.
That Richard Dreyfuss, old gangsters moved to Florida movie
Yeah,
we talked
yeah,
about
yeah.
before.
The
I
Crew.
think you're right. This, if it didn't start the genre, it cemented the genre.
Yeah.
And now every year there's at least one what I call geriatric comedies, and that's fine. I'm not putting it down because hey, guess what? A lot of senior citizens in the world, they like to laugh, they like to watch movies,
And see familiar actors doing their thing.
Yeah, they make movies for kids who are 5 years old, like Storks and Trolls and shit.
Yeah.
And yet they make movies for people who are older. And I'm not judging that. I remember having a good time. I only saw it the one time. It's probably pretty forgettable, but definitely on the underseen.
Yeah, and definitely a departure for Eastwood.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
I think we're at a point now where we know that Danny Boyle can do just about anything.
Yeah.
But the time that he did Sunshine I don't think I was expecting him to come up with a big, thoughtful sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
No.
And when our buddy Alex Garland was the writer on this movie too. I love how we're just casually throwing that out there like we know the dude.
People are going to assume that we actually know these
Friend of the
people.
show, James Cromwell.
Because we have some, like Jeremy Simser and people we've made friends with that are in the industry, and then we just make up others.
I don't want to give anybody the wrong idea. We don't have any friends. So. But Danny Boyle and Sunshine, man, I had a particularly great experience with this, watching this in New York at the Sunshine Theater.
Oh, wow.
And having Danny Boyle come out and talk about it afterwards.
Oh, neat.
That was a
nice.
really, really cool. I'll always remember that, that thing. But yeah, man, I don't think very many people have seen Sunshine, and it's got a great cast in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got it's basically a bunch of astronauts going to fix the sun,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just good.
Why is this underseen? You're absolutely right, but it seemed like it came and went. But it's got a great director, great cast,
Mm-hmm.
Got
like
great
great
reviews.
concept. Yeah, I mean everything about it should scream like this is a touchstone of his career. But
Yeah.
hardly anybody has seen.
I knew
this.
somebody at the theater who said this is his favorite movie of all time, but he may have been the only person in that building who had seen it,
Oh, really?
besides me.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I don't hear people talk about it as much. It's kind of one of those things. Like, I'm glad that we have this forum
Yeah.
to tell people about it. Go watch some Sunshine, man. Get you some. The Danny Boyle, before this had done stuff like Shallow Grave, Train Spotting, The Beach.
Mm-hmm.
He did 28 Days Later, which sort of gave you that idea that he could span out into other genres and everything. Now he just does everything.
Yeah.
But before then, I wasn't expecting a big sci-fi movie from him.
He was still known mostly for Train Spotting, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
And man, that's a good pick.
Yeah.
I like that movie.
All right.
I want to watch that movie again.
Underrated?
Underrated. All right, I've talked about this movie before, but I'll give it just a quick shout out to Alfonso Cuarón doing Great Expectations,
Okay.
which is very, very. The Rotten Tomato score is 38%.
Yeah.
It's better than that for sure.
Now, this is an interesting pick, too, from you, because I agree in some ways.
Mhm.
He had done a Little Princess before this, which I think sort of suggests that he could do a Great Expectations.
Mhm.
Like, we see movies now that he does, and then you go back and look at Great Expectations. You're like, oh, really? He did that?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is really on that track.
Yeah.
The same kind of spirit of the track we're going for, but
Mhm.
I respect your choice.
Well, that's good because I've got another one.
Yeah.
And another friend of the show, Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah, that's right.
So Branagh was known and is still probably best known for his Shakespearean stuff.
Mhm.
He's doing Murder on the Orient Express. Of course, he did Thor.
Which has that fucking Imagine Dragons song in the trailer for some reason. That is the most out of place song I've ever heard on a movie trailer.
I disagree.
Yeah?
Because I heard the most out of place music on a trailer that I saw yesterday. Valerian, you know the music in the
Yeah.
background of Valerian?
Oh yeah,
Is a slowed down version of Gangsta's Paradise.
Right. I heard that the other day. But you know what? They do that. They do that with a lot of trailers
Yeah,
nowadays. They see that slow down version of a song or whatever. But like, I remember watching that Murder on the Orient Express trailer, and I was like, well, if you told me beforehand, go through the Rolodex of songs that you could go through to play, that would be the last one.
Also, I noticed today, it seems like all Imagine Dragons songs are one-word titles.
Ah.
Radioactive, Believer, Demons. That just heard a new one today, Thunder.
Oh, yeah.
They don't like to go extra words
They're
on
like
the title.
they're like the Friends episodes where they're like
Yeah.
the one about the one
Yeah.
about the.
Well, Pearl Jam had that problem on 10. They had all one-word songs pretty much. And then the next in verses, they had a song called Elderly Woman Behind the...
Yeah.
Behind the Counter in a Small Town. That's
Yeah,
my favorite
exactly.
Pearl Jam song.
It's a great one. So anyway, Kenneth Branagh, still known for Shakespeare and stuff like that, did Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Yep.
And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is not a great movie. It's got Bobby D in it. It's got Helena Bonham Carter and, of course, Kenneth Branagh in it. And it is fun. It's watchable. It's definitely the best version of Frankenstein that I've seen, including, I, Frankenstein or whatever the hell came out recently. And it's definitely a departure for him because this was his first kind of foray into it was a bit of a blockbuster at that point, a well-known monster property and everything, and based on the actual source material. So you should probably watch it. It's got a 39% Rotten Tomatoes.
De Niro was Frankenstein.
Yes, he's the monster.
Yeah, the monster.
Yeah.
Fucking technical motherfucker.
Yeah.
You know what? I've read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I still called the monster Frankenstein during that
It's
fucking...
it's ubiquitous at this point. They're interchangeable. But yeah, Branagh plays Victor Frankenstein, and actually is really, really good, really compelling in it.
I believe this is where, here's the salacious details of that movie. This is where Kenneth Branagh met Helena Bonham Carter, and then he started cheating on Emma Thompson, and that's broke them up.
Home wrecker.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now,
So basically, he's been with like two of the best working British actresses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
At
well,
least.
I mean, he has. I don't know if he's been with Judi Dench, but
Helen Mirren back in the day.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
I don't like my pick for underrated just because I've talked about it before, and I couldn't come up with something I hadn't. But it's Brett Ratner and Red Dragon.
Uh-huh.
Because Brett Ratner is an action comedy guy.
Yeah.
Money Talks, Rush Hour movies, and then he comes along and makes basically a psychological thriller almost. It's not as good as Silence of the Lambs. It's not an A+.
Yeah.
But it's extremely watchable.
Definitely.
And mostly it's due to, like, because Ed Norton's pretty forgettable. He's just kind of playing a guy. He's not bad in the movie or anything, but we get performances from people like Ving Rhames. Jesus Christ.
Ray Fiennes?
Ray Fiennes. I get
Same.
Very
Ving Rhames
similar.
and Ray Fiennes mixed up.
Faith Rhymes.
And I'm blanking on another name.
Philip Seymour Hoffman?
Philip Seymour Hoffman. You are saving my ass right now. And then the Emily, I always get her name. There's like 3 British Emilys, and I always fuck them up. Emily Watson, Emily.
Yeah, it's Emily Watson, I think.
Yeah. And they just kind of sell the creep. They sell the creepiness. The scene where he kills Philip Seymour Hoffman is really disturbing.
Yes, it is.
Pretty much all of his interactions with Emily Watson are disturbing because she's blind, and he knows it. And it does get to a point where creepy stuff's about to happen, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
And then she realizes something bad's about to happen, and she starts to lose it, and it's really unsettling. And you get a little bit of Hannibal Lecter in here, where basically the way they use Lecter is the same way they used him in Silence of the Lambs. So Ed Norton goes to talk to him to pick his brain to try and understand this other killer. I think it's a totally watchable thriller. I don't know what its Rotten Tomatoes rating is, but it's been forgotten by filmdom, and it's really watchable.
That first scene, the dinner scene, where it's showing Lecter before he was captured or anything like that. And, he's serving them this, fine, upstanding table, like human stuff.
It's like the board of the opera or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, he knows he's serving them sweetbreads or whatever it is. And then that scene where Edward Norton comes in, Will Graham comes in and confronts him is super tense.
It is. It really is.
And, that's a good pick.
And that's the era that the TV show went back to, the TV show Hannibal.
Uh-huh.
That I hadn't seen. Mads Mikkelsen's in that.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be great, but they went back to that era when he had yet to have even been caught.
Yeah.
One of these days I'll check that out.
Me too, yeah.
Anyway, I like this universe, and this movie's way better than its reputation. So. And most of today's fans have probably not seen this movie. So.
All right, for my underrated, I'm going to go with Kevin Smith and Tusk.
Wow,
Nice.
okay.
Obviously, Smith known for comedies at this point, and Tusk definitely has comedy in it. But here's the thing: Tusk I think is an absolute winner until the actual walrus shit comes into play, which luckily for the movie is only in the last 20 to 30 minutes of it. It is Kevin Smith's best writing he's ever done. There's a scene in there between Justin Long and Michael Parks, where they're just sitting by a fire or whatever, and there's just this long conversation. And it just pulls you right in to this whole movie. Now, it's got Daffy moments in it, of course, and there's Johnny Depp playing, or Donnie Jepp playing that weird investigator guy with a long nose and outrageous French Canadian accent and all that. But the movie is way better than it gets credit for, I think. It is, yes, a movie that they made because they were talking about it on a podcast and just basically randomly came up with the plot on a podcast, and then they wrote it and made it out of...
Is it literally about a guy turning into a walrus, like the entirety of the time, or...
No. So Justin Long he's a podcast guy, and he wants to go to he needs to go to Canada for some reason. I can't remember why. I can't remember the whole reasoning for why he was going where he was going, but he ends up basically getting knocked out by this Michael Parks character, and Michael Parks sort of makes it seem like he found him and that he's taking care of him until he can get him to a hospital, but they're way out in the middle of nowhere. And they can't do it right now, and he's in a wheelchair. So really it gets up to about an hour or so before I think the walrus shit even kicks in.
Oh,
there's that long conversation, and then there's like a sort of a blackening out of some sort, and then by that point, that's when you start seeing him as the walrus and everything.
Yeah.
That's where the movie definitely falls apart. Don't get it wrong. That premise is stupid. But everything leading up to that is terrific.
Huh.
And I know a lot of people won't give the movie a chance because of its premise. Turn the guy into a walrus for some stupid ass psychotic reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But everything leading up to it is great.
Okay, let's check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
When it gets to being the walrus, you'd be fine to turn it off, probably.
I made you just
just assume. All right, walrus shit is
walrus shit is terrible. Go on with your lives. So, want to go over a few of the honorable mentions of this. I listed Paul Thomas Anderson for There Will Be Blood because that's another big, huge, epic type of movie that we weren't expecting from him. He had done these screwed up, dysfunctional family unit type movies like Magnolia and Boogie Nights, and he'd done Punch Drunk Love, but I don't think anybody expected him to have a big movie like that kind of scale and just knock it out of the park like that.
Yeah.
Also, Steven Spielberg, The Color Purple. He had done nothing but big, huge summer blockbusters to this point. And 1941.
Yeah.
And so the year after the Temple of Doom, he comes out with this movie, which is terrific, by the way. So that was a stretch for him.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
feel like that's something that I didn't think anybody saw coming. And he went on to a big stretch of these type of movies. Empire of the Sun came later.
Always.
Yeah, always. But then he did Schindler's List and Amistad and Saving Private Ryan. So we knew he had it in him by that point. But when Color Purple came out, I wouldn't have picked Spielberg to be the guy to direct that. Should have won Best Picture over that bullshit Out of Africa too. I had this is one that you might have an argument with, Wes Craven for Scream. Even though he had done horror movies.
Yeah.
He had never done anything this well shot, well thought out, I don't think. And there's a lot of people who love Wes Craven. They love some Wes Craven horror movies and everything. I've yet to be on board with a lot of those. Even the original Nightmare on Elm Street is not a movie that I really hold in high regard.
Yep.
When he did this, he was able to take a look at his own work and basically like make fun of it, taking this Kevin Williamson script, and he made a fun, well shot, beautifully cast movie. I was not expecting that out of him. That's his best movie to me. I know that's probably sacrilege to some people, but
I think me too. Yeah.
But he, a lot of people love his, People Under the Stairs and shit like that.
Did he make The Craft?
No.
He should have. Much like Danny Boyle, we could put basically the entire Rob Reiner filmography up for this category because it's the man intentionally set about to reinvent himself genre-wise almost every single movie he made. So I just wanted to mention that.
I also had Tim Burton for Ed Wood.
Good call.
That's great. Yeah,
that was in my underseen category.
I want that Tim Burton back.
Yeah, no kidding. Tim Burton, obviously, before this, was known for a lot of these fantasy, weird Edward Scissorhands type movies and Batman. But to do a movie like this, I mean, it's very Tim Burton still, but it's not anything that he had done before.
Definitely not.
I also, in my underrated I've mentioned before, basketball, David Zucker.
Yeah.
I wrote here, I said it's a movie that's so terrible in some places that it's easy to forget the good stuff that's in it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a shitty movie. But man, are there some belly laughs?
Oh, you'll laugh your ass off in this movie.
Yeah, and this movie is beneath David Zucker. He had done Airplane and Naked Gun and Top Secret; those were his best. But along with, I get by this point, his brother Jerry had gone off and just done other things. That could really fit it. If you like First Night, Jerry Zucker doing First Night was a complete departure. Well, Ghost was even more. It was even more.
First Night, my wife was watching this movie the other day, and I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is like the dumbest conceived King Arthur story in the history of mankind. Let's make King Arthur 90.
Yeah.
And then let's take Richard Gere, dramatic heartthrob, and make him an action sword fighting star.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the movie miscasts everyone except Julia Ormond.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah.
Fuck that movie.
All right, well, that's our movie club for this week. Let's go on to our next topic, which is women in film.
I'm a motherfucking woman!
What the hell is going on around here?
Play it once, Sam. For all time's sake.
You better keep your mouth shut! Oh, I think I love him.
Super duper trooper. Get the fuck out of here, Congresswoman.
Women.
Girls, power.
That's right.
Empowerification. We do so much guy talk on this show because we're guys and our perspective is that from the male perspective. And it's easy when we do movie clubs or questions that our answers often end up being male-centric. And we wanted to be intentional about breaking that cycle for an episode and highlight some of the best pioneering, most important women in the history of film.
Mm-hmm.
Good call on the topic, by the way.
Now, unfortunately, we're probably going to be a little light on, like, women of the past, like 30s, 40s, 50s, and stuff like that. There's obviously a lot of pioneers there.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry for that miss.
We weren't alive then?
Yeah.
So, no less about it.
And the oldest one that I have come up with is Ingrid Bergman, because everything that I ever saw Ingrid Bergman in was amazing.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why she's the picture on my phone.
Yeah.
She was not only gorgeous, but she was an extremely talented actress. And if you guys want to see her at her best, watch Gaslight, which I believe she won the Oscar for. That's a great movie, and she's great in it. But that's just sort of a little kickoff. What do you guys think?
Well, if we're talking about actresses, I've got an older one too, and it's almost a cliche at this point. But Audrey Hepburn, has really earned her cultural icon status. I think because when you look back on it, in her movies, she owns almost all of the movies that she's featured in. You think about Breakfast at Tiffany's, obviously. I mean, that's her movie. My Fair Lady, same thing. And Charade, she's great in.
Yeah.
And this is stealing the spotlight from people like Cary Grant and people like huge stars.
Yeah.
And she's able to hold her own, and she is hilarious. I don't know if I've mentioned Funny Face in this podcast before, but Funny Face, she's acting right next to Fred Astaire, like in his kind of a little bit past his prime, but where he's cemented as, cultural icon status. And she not only holds her own, she owns that movie, I think.
Yeah.
And now she is a better actress, I think, than she gets credit for, because she gets credit for being this manic pixie dream girl type of thing. Yeah. And she's much more than that. She's got a lot of texture to her performances, even though her performances are typically adorable.
Yeah.
It's more than that. So that's a great actress.
People have been looking for the next Audrey Hepburn for a really long time. I don't think they've ever found it. Speaking of Julia Ormond, that was someone they were trying to be.
That's funny.
Because Audrey Hepburn was in the first Sabrina, and then Julia Ormond was in the remake.
Yeah.
And they were trying to get her to be the next Audrey. And there's just, the thing is, you can't be somebody from the past. You have to be somebody.
Yeah.
Audrey Tattoo is probably the closest.
Yeah.
And she's not Audrey Hepburn.
It's like looking for the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
There's nobody like Michael Jordan. But Audrey Hepburn, what she had was kind of a worldview because she was born in, I think, Belgium, and had that European sensibility, I think. And, you know, somebody just from like the mid-Atlantic states in the U.S. and doesn't have that particular worldview, I guess just doesn't have the experiential status to put their imprint on their performances, and she had it.
Yeah.
Good call. When my wife was watching First Night the other day, there was a shot of Julia Ormond, and my wife was like, "She's so beautiful," and I said, "There was a time where she was going to be the next thing." Like, there was a good couple. I think she made this is literally what I said to my wife. I think she made a movie with Brad Pitt, and after that, everybody said, "Let's make her the thing." And then my wife and I had a 15-minute conversation where she could not understand why it didn't happen.
Yeah.
She's beautiful. She's got talent. And I was like, I don't know. This is how Hollywood works sometimes.
Those movies never took off, though. I mean, Sabrina, which I actually do enjoy, wasn't a huge hit by any means. First Night certainly wasn't. They take a couple of big hits and people really loving you and your characters and all that. It takes a lot of things to become that famous and that good. She showed up later in Mad Men as
oh, that's right.
as the mom of what's her name?
I forgot all about that.
But and she was good in it.
Yeah.
But it's just it takes
That was her. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a long time to get to. I think it takes a lot to get to that status where you're Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it takes so many forms of luck and the right movies and all that. And I think she went to the right path. It just didn't work out.
I'm not going back as far as you guys, but I think I have a similarly iconic female actress who's earned it, and that's Sally Field.
Yeah.
Who, now, I have a connection to this movie and this story because I sat behind her at a screening of Norma Ray.
Whoa!
At the Music Box Theater down the street from where you used to live in
Chicago?
This is when I was in college, and we decided, let's go to the Chicago Film Festival. And we were like, okay. We didn't know it was playing. We got there, and the next show to play was Norma Ray. And we're like, all right, I've never seen Norma Ray. Let's go in. We go in, we get in the second row. Frickin' Sally Field walks out and sits right in front of us.
Nice.
That's crazy.
And watches the movie with us and then does a little Q&A afterwards. But that movie is a really good capsule of, I think, her career in terms of how she took hold of what she was going to become, just like the character Norma Ray takes hold of her own situation. It's a labor dispute movie. I think it's based on a true story. And she's great in it. This is not the one where she does the Oscar speech, "You like me, you really like me."
Yeah, that was Places in the Heart where she did that.
But she's Oscar worthy if she didn't win or get nominated for this movie. I'd never seen it. She's really great. And you just look at her career. She can play any kind of woman. She can play fragile, she can play strong, she can play attractive, she can play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just look up and down, like, Punchline, where that's a completely, like, new kind of a role for me to see her in. Everything to Mrs. Doubtfire and even the Spider-Man movies with Andrew Garfield, I thought she's earned this place, like Martin Sheen, to be cast in this iconic role. Like, this is perfect. Honestly, one of the worst things about those movies tanking is that Martin Sheen and Sally Field are no longer Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Because I think they would have been the best in those roles of any of the trilogies we've had so far. So.
Jeez, man. In her prime, and God bless her, she's fine now, but in her prime, I had the most massive crush on Sally Field. I guess it was probably around, because I had grown up watching Smokey and the Bandit and things like that, and even Norma Ray, I think. But right around Mrs. Doubtfire, man.
Yep.
Good. That's good Sally Field right there.
Surprise Sally Field?
Yeah, a little surprise Sally
Field. Good choice, though. The thing that I saw Norma Ray recently, maybe last year was the first time I saw it. It's interesting to see Sally Field's eyes in Norma Ray. They're always sort of darting back and forth, and I don't know what that is. It's
cocaine.
It's cocaine.
No, just kidding.
Sorry, it's not cocaine.
Please don't go James Woods on me, Sally
That's right. But it was one of the things that I noticed about her performance, and I was wondering if that was on purpose or if there was something with the lights or something like that. It's really interesting, but she's great in that movie.
Yeah,
it's a great movie. Later on, it was sort of what was that movie that Charlize Theron was in?
It was the same kind of thing, only coal miners.
Yeah, something country, something North Country.
What do you think of her in Lincoln?
Well,
that's one performance I actually didn't like her in.
No,
she was nominated, wasn't she?
if she was, it was just because she's such an icon.
Yeah,
that character's annoying as balls.
Yeah. It was North Country. The Charlize Theron one was the sort of the same thing. And there's always something interesting about these, I don't know, working women movies always seem to really bring out the best in the actress a lot of times. Those two and Silkwood with Meryl Streep. I mean, they really like, I don't know what it is. Because they're fighting for stuff, and they're like, they're not going to let the men, fuck them over and all that type of stuff. It is something about those movies that just brings the best out. I don't know what it is. Charlize Theron's great in North Country too.
Well, which is Charlize Theron is one that I would add to this list. I think in 20 years she'll be at what Sally Field's level is now. She's had a really long, diverse career. I think she empowers a lot of other women, both in the stuff she does off screen and characters like Furiosa. By the way, I just read the other day, she quoted in some interview as saying the script is ready for the prequel to Fury Road. And it's called Furiosa.
Cannot wait for that.
Now, a little hot tub time machine here. We're going to see how she loses the arm?
Yeah, totally.
Probably.
Or is she going to be the whole movie with one arm?
I don't know.
It'd be great if they never explain it.
Oh, it's going to happen right now. It's going to happen right now. Oh, come on.
You just compared Fury Road to Hot Tub Time.
I'm telling you, it's going to have the same effect. If we get a prequel for Furiosa and she's got two good arms, we're going to be waiting the whole movie.
Yeah, it'll be. I think it'll be good if she already has it lost because it will be that type of thing. You're absolutely right. Especially now that you've brought it out into the world. But
give me more women, Barrett. That sounded wrong.
Let's stick with actresses, man.
Okay. You guys know that I'm always gravitating towards comedy and everything like that. One of the best ones of all time is Madeline Kahn.
Oh, yes.
And you watch her in Young Frankenstein. She's actually not in Young Frankenstein very much, but she almost steals the movie because of how good she is.
Yeah.
And of course she's great in Clue as well. I mean, she is one of my all-time favorite comic actors. She just knows where to go for it and everything. And especially in Young Frankenstein, I really love her in that.
Oh, she's hilarious.
I think this whole talk, I'm going to skew more recent than you guys because I'm an asshole. But I think Julia Louis-Dreyfus is headed that direction.
Absolutely.
And she's had 3 great, what I would call eras, because she was on SNL, and then she did Seinfeld. And then where everyone else from Seinfeld has crashed and burned repeatedly, she made Veep.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Now, her stint on SNL was not very long-lived. I think that was that one season, and it was during the period of time SNL didn't have Lorne Michaels.
No, but I give anybody that was on SNL back then credit just for having been part of what that would become. She wasn't Eddie Murphy when she was on that show, but having been associated with the early seasons of SNL, I think is a notch in her icon status. And I can't wait to see what she does after Veep is done, because she's now shown me enough comic talent that I'm confident she's going to succeed.
Oh yeah.
And what do you think is better, her character in Veep or her character in Seinfeld?
Veep.
Veep is amazing, right?
I mean Elaine, this is going to sound wrong, but she's more one note than the character is in Veep.
Yeah.
The character in Veep on the surface feels more one note, but over the course of the show has shown us a lot of different sides to her and looks inside. Vagina building killed me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's there's more substance there. There's more showy work for her to do as a comedian. Whereas Elaine was just sort of, she was going to do one of two things. She was going to yell, "Get out," and shove you, or she was going to disdain some lower person in society beneath her.
They really built a character in Veep, and even though I was a little down on this past season that went on and everything, just she's at her most fragile, and she's at her meanest. She's at, there's a lot of things going on with her character in this where there's a lot of things that are justified about what she does, and there's a lot of things that are unjustified. It's hard to really kind of keep up with all the things that she feels like she is entitled to in that show. And they really have built a character where almost, you can. you know her character better than like as well as the writers do. That's how well that they've written her.
She's an heiress too, isn't she? Like she's rich as balls.
What, the actress?
Julie Louis-Dreyfus.
Oh,
herself.
Well, I'm sure she's rich now.
No, she comes from like this billionaire.
When you said
money.
she's rich as balls, I heard she's Richard's balls. I thought you were making a Richard Dreyfuss comparison.
Oh wow, that would be crazy.
And I thought, well, so what a really wrong joke to make. But you weren't saying that.
No.
So you think she's like? Do you think maybe Seinfeld stole that candy bar heiress joke from?
Maybe so, because she comes from a ton of money. Like she's very, very rich even before all that stuff. Yeah. I guess I'll do one more actress here, but I think over time has kind of forgotten how good Jodie Foster is.
Yeah.
Because, man, she was, like, fearless when she was really in her heyday.
She's been doing it since she was, like, 6.
Taxi Driver, right?
I mean...
Well, before Taxi Driver, even. She was in, like, what was that? Was she in Paint Your Wagon or one of those
She was in that
movies?
Candle Shoe movie that I love to talk about.
Oh, yeah. But then, I mean, after that, The Accused, and then went on to do, a crazy variety of things. But in 2 movies that I thought about, obviously Silence of the Lambs, she's terrific in. And when you can hold your own with Anthony Hopkins doing one of his most iconic characterizations, and she holds that whole thing where he's getting the story from her background and the lambs and all that stuff. She stays in there, man.
Yep.
Like she locks gazes with him and doesn't flinch, both as a character and as an actress. And that's amazing. But I think one of the most underrated performances is in Contact.
Yeah.
In Contact, man, she don't give a fuck about your opinion. She doesn't need a man, even though she ends up with Palmer Joss. But not really romantically. Like it's just kind of a 1 to 2 night stand. She's driven by her career, and that's a really cool thing. And
she
driven really makes it believable
by her career, but it's deeper than that. She's driven by seeking knowledge,
the search.
Yeah,
she's the purest kind of scientist that we get to see in movies. Is that is the most important thing.
Well, you think about like how long she's been out there just listening to the skies.
Yeah.
Like I think Contact says something like 4 years later or something like that.
It is, and in the book, it goes into much more detail about that span of time, where like she's literally moving the satellite 1 click over, listening, moving it over,
and that's all she's doing, and like almost anticipating every single time, even though the chances aren't very likely that she's going to hear anything. And that's one of those that, those 4 years later or whatever gloss over a lot of times. She's been doing that for 4 years, going out into the desert and listening for 8 hours, maybe longer, probably longer, and then just going home and probably sleeping for 5 hours and then coming back. And goes into the office and like checks all the equipment and then gets in her truck and drives back out to the desert,
Didn't they? That signal came from something that they already checked, wasn't it? Like she doubled back, and because William Fichtner's character says like, "Oh no, we've already checked that out like a couple months ago."
They may have misunderstood what it was or whatever, or they thought it was something else. I don't remember that in the movie.
It's just like a little detail of like her obsessive nature.
But it very well could be. I wouldn't be shocked, or Anyway, good call on Jodie Foster. I mean, she's sort of been forgotten. It's probably that awful thing that Hollywood does with the older women, and you're not what you were back when you were. I mean, I think she had an awful performance in Elysium.
Yeah.
But overall, she's super. I mean, like great and a legend.
Yeah, she's great in Inside Man.
Yeah. So, it's a good call.
For my last actress, I'm assuming we're gonna move on to directors or something after this. I'm going back to Mary Tyler Moore.
Yeah.
Now, she had, like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, she followed up the Dick Van Dyke Show's success with the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which is probably what she's more famous for, but which I have seen far less of. Now, I can jam on some Dick Van Dyke Show. I don't know if you've ever seen that shit.
That's great.
John Ritterose's entire career to Dick Van Dyke, tripping over the ottoman. And much like you were saying with Jodie Foster and Hannibal Lecter in that scene, Mary Tyler Moore anchors this show. The star is Dick Van Dyke, and he gets most of the comedy. But if you do not have someone with the same chops to go toe-to-toe with him in these scenes, like Mary Tyler Moore. I think very few people could have played this role great. And you look at most great sitcoms, at least family set sitcoms, have a strong mother character. Cosby Show, Home Improvement. That's all because of Mary Tyler Moore, because she invented it with the Dick Van Dyke Show and broke the mold of how an actress is supposed to play that kind of a role. And I'm telling you, it's probably still in my top 5 best sitcoms ever list. Dick Van Dyke Show holds up really good. It's really funny and classic.
Nice.
She later had a pretty awesome turn in Flirting with Disaster.
She's great in that I love movie. That. Yeah. She kind of almost like Betty White in the Crocodile movie, busting the conventions of what we're used to with her.
Absolutely.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, it really is. David O. Russell.
Yep.
All right, so directors. I'm going to go with, again, I'm going to go towards the comedy here, and I'm going to go with Amy Heckerling.
Oh, good call.
Amy Heckerling, Clueless, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. She did European Vacation. She did, and she did Johnny Dangerously, which is a movie that
I forgot that she had done that.
Yeah, which is a movie that I don't know if it gets any respect at all. Like, I think a lot of people just call it a stupid comedy. Yeah. Michael Keaton is great in that.
Yeah, he is.
But Amy Heckerling, man, those are all like, I've watched those movies many times. And she's got a great gift. It's funny too, because even while she's doing this very difficult job of being a woman director, as far as, having to put up with a lot of shit and everything, there's that I saw that thing about Fast Times at Ridgemont High where Phoebe Cates was having issues with doing the nude scene, and Phoebe Cates tried to appeal to Amy Heckerling and saying, like, is there, sort of like, hey, we're sisters in this. Don't make me do this or whatever. And she told her, I'm a working director trying to make my studio happy. You're going to be doing this scene, that type of thing.
Well, and it wasn't something like we're making this for 15-year-old boys or trying to pretend you're a 15-year-old boy or something.
Well, that was actually Road Trip, where Amy Smart was having trouble doing her nude scene.
Too much talk of Amy's and boobs.
That's right.
I'm getting them all confused.
Just like Todd Phillips said, do it for all the 15-year-old boys out there.
Right.
She's like, okay. But yeah, man, I've seen Fast Times at Ridgemont High like an insane amount of times. And I'm probably a great deal of bias entered my head and thinking there's no way a woman directed this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's like, just like what we're talking about with the Phoebe Cates stuff and then the Jennifer Jason Leigh stuff and all that. You're like, a woman directed this? Are you sure? But it's so funny, man.
It is.
Such a good movie.
And some
classic.
of that credit, at least a sliver, goes to Cameron Crowe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. For going in and doing the sort of the 21 Jump Street
I
thing.
thought it was cute. I've seen all these headlines about Tom Holland spent a week undercover in a real New York high school before filming Spider-Man Homecoming. And I'm like, Cameron Crowe could eat you for breakfast, you little punk. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's crazy about Amy Heckerling is that how she captured the moods of teens in 2 different complete eras.
Yes.
Between Clueless and
captured
Fast Times.
the eras perfectly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nuts.
Yeah, Clueless is 90s as fuck.
Yeah.
It is.
But she got it down, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, every time I think 90s, I go back to that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And another great big credit to her on this was that I remember seeing the standee for Clueless. The theater I had got a standee for it, and it was like, it was Alicia Silverstone and Stacey Dash and Brittany Murphy, all with like these like bags and glitter and all this other type of shit. And I was like, what kind of fucking ridiculous movie is this that we're getting? This is going to be a piece of shit. And then it comes in, and man, it's smart. It's really well done.
Man, yeah, that movie took everybody by surprise, I think.
Yeah.
My pick for director, or one of my picks for director, had a whole sitcom career. It's almost like a Ron Howard type of situation.
Oh, I know who you're picking.
But Penny Marshall had a great run of. She did. These are movies that I really like. She did Big, obviously, which is a huge thing. She did A League of Their Own, which I really love.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Another Tom Hanks vehicle, and then she did Awakenings, which I thought was a really
Awakenings is good.
Really good movie.
Is that
too.
the De Niro one? Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, so I mean that alone is a great stretch. Now, of course, she had other stuff. She's had other directorial efforts too, and then of course she was She was Laverne, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know which one she was. I just know she was on it.
She was Laverne and or Shirley.
Yes.
But man, I mean, to go from that, it really does remind me a lot of Ron Howard doing Opie and then the Happy Days and then becoming
directing.
this world-class director. So yeah, she looks like she could stand toe to toe with anybody.
How talented is the Marshall family? Because Gary Marshall's out there too. I mean, we're talking about women today, but talk about iconic Hollywood personas. Yeah, she's great.
Was it Gary Marshall that died earlier this year?
He died. He was like in his 90s or something like that?
He
died
had
today?
Earlier this year.
Oh, okay. I thought you said earlier today.
Penny. Yeah, that would have been awful.
Would have been.
Yeah, Gary Marshall's out there. Well, not anymore.
As of 3 hours ago.
I just checked my Twitter. But Penny Marshall, just as an aside, I have a feeling that this is what a lot of studio heads are like, or at least back in this day or whatever. The Buddy Ackerman character from Swimming with Sharks. There's the part where Frank Whaley's character says, "Why don't we get Penny Marshall to direct this?" And he goes, "Penny Marshall, a woman on a shoot on a shoot? Do I have on a monthly shoot?" And it's like that has probably set some women directors back because guys are sitting there thinking, "Oh, they ovulate, blah blah blah."
Yeah. We can't deal with that.
Can't deal with ovulation,
right?
We can't even risk it. I don't have too many directors on my list. I kind of just did like a aimless list of women, and then some of them happen to be directors. But I think we should probably talk about Catherine Bigelow.
Yep.
And she's probably the modern leader of the charge for female directors with Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker. She also made Strange Days, which I not encourage you watch because it's
watch the trailer though. Trailer's awesome.
Trailer's awesome. Movie's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm hard pressed to find another female director working today that has accomplished what she has. And when you think about the kind of people, again, it's almost like is a woman directed this because Zero Dark 30 is got so much action and testosterone.
And I want to make clear about this bias here. It's not this bias we have today. It is a bias that when you first are growing up and you get these weird little, voices in your head, whether it's parents or friends or whatever, you start looking like, really? A woman did this or whatever. It takes you to have some real open-minded study to finally go, there's really, they should have had a lot more chances than.
Well, yeah. Well, ideally, we'd get to a place where we would never say a woman directed this. It's just. I made myself look bad.
Well, that's the problem, right? You can't say certain things without sounding like a dick. I'm sorry, we're not dicks here. We're trying to discuss this in an intelligent way.
Yeah.
She made these movies. My point is, it's for everybody.
Yeah.
And you can watch Zero Dark 30 without ever thinking about the director's gender.
Right.
And I have to feel like there are scores of young ladies that are seeing movies like this and then finding out it was directed by a woman and then being inspired to go to film school or pick up a camera or get on YouTube or what have you. That the only way it's ever going to get close to equality is by doing more of it and pointing out when it's done well. And anyway, fuck it.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I think she's a great director.
There's no way to sound like we're being some sort of what is it, the microaggression type shit?
No, yeah.
It's impossible not to, I think, get into that a little bit.
I would reverse it. Like, I would watch Thelma and Louise and say, a guy directed this?
Yeah.
That's true.
So,
but Catherine Bigelow's a really good one. Because I those movies are usually reserved for the big testosterone type directors. Even though Zero Dark 30 has a female at its center, Jessica Chastain's another person we could easily talk about in there. We could talk about a million actresses today. But the Hurt Locker for sure, like just completely, just like that feels like Danny Boyle did it or something like that. But I've got a few other directors on here. Did you get a chance to go through?
Yeah, I did one. I did Penny Marshall.
Jane Campion obviously did the piano, and she never quite could get up to the piano status. She's still working today and everything, but she doesn't have this huge long career. Now she did, this huge, like Scorsese-like career or whatever. But that was a promising entry, and then everything after that's kind of like either fell flat or whatever. But Sarah Polley did the movie Away from Her, which is a really, really good movie that I would recommend.
She's a great actress in her own right, too.
Absolutely. And also Mary Harron did American Psycho. Yeah. And I shot Andy Warhol and did the Notorious Betty Page, all three of those. But American Psycho is her signature movie, and I don't think Bret Easton Ellis likes the adaptation of it, but I've read both the book and watched the movie, and I like them both equally.
It's a hard book to adapt to a movie, and I think she really did a great job.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost like apples and oranges, but it's almost like Stanley Kubrick saying, "Great idea, Steven, but I'm just going to kind of use the bones of it and make a whole different thing with The Shining."
Yeah.
Like she kept most of the elements in there, but there's just so much weirdness and confusion in that story that there's a million different ways you could adapt it.
One of the great things about that movie, I don't know if we've discussed it on the podcast, is the Willem Dafoe character. She shot him in several different stages of like, she wanted a performance where he believed that he was doing these crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one where it's just sort of ambivalent.
Yeah.
And then another one where he's just there just to be, whatever. So she mixed up all of those so that you think that you're never quite sure where Willem Dafoe is on this whole thing. It's even weirder, though, that he's not actually committing these crimes.
Yeah.
So, like, so is he like imagining Willem Dafoe? Is Willem Dafoe really real? I mean, is he even a real character in this? Whatever. It's an interesting movie to discuss.
No, definitely. I mean, there could be a lot of things that are not real about that movie.
Yeah.
She kind of closes it more definitively, certainly, than the novel does.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's a crazy story.
Yeah. Where else do we want to go?
Wanted to mention Sofia Coppola.
Oh, yeah. I'm glad you're mentioning her.
As the director, because even in her misses, which Marie Antoinette is not a great movie.
I like watching it, though.
I like watching it, too. Virgin Suicides is a fine movie. Lost in Translation, I just watched it recently. It is a masterclass.
Yeah.
It is absolutely beautiful. And
Bling Ring.
Bling Ring, yeah, that's totally
forgettable.
Yeah.
But Lost in Translation, like, you can tell that she's got a real director's eye and a lot of control over this because, obviously they're left for Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson to kind of roam around this area, but she keeps it very well defined. And to have a movie that has that little going on and make it super compelling to watch is really a testament to her talent.
Well, and I like how she's clearly established a voice as a director that's nothing like her father's.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, until she puts out a movie that's not beautiful to look at, I'll keep watching them. Because Marie Antoinette really doesn't have anything to offer except visuals and an out-of-place Knight's Tale type soundtrack of modern pop music. It's really not worth watching. There's not a lot of there's almost no script. But it's so fucking gorgeous.
Yeah,
but I will go back to it when I see it when I'm flipping channels.
I hear this Beguiled movie's pretty good, though.
That's her latest one.
Yeah, it's over here at the Belcourt right now.
Oh, really?
In fact, yeah. But I hear that's good. And yeah, she has kind of, had this weird kind of career where she's made these dreamlike type of movies and everything, and to some sort of varying degrees of success on all of them and everything. I love Virgin Suicides and I love Lost in Translation. Haven't gotten quite to the love factor on any of the other movies that I've seen, like Somewhere and all those.
Somewhere is a terrible movie.
Yeah, and but that she's got the talent to do it and everything, and of course comes from an incredible pedigree.
Yeah, no kidding. Just don't ask her to act.
That's right. She's probably a better actress.
I wonder if she's a good actress now.
I bet she is. Like, I bet they threw her into this.
Can you imagine how intimidated she must have been on that set? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give her a break.
I know, that's insane.
It's not like Andy Garcia is awesome in that movie or anything.
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
But he is really awesome in Passengers.
His beard is awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you a question about Passengers, because I just saw it again on HBO Stars the other day. Where'd they get the fucking chicken? Andy Garcia walks out, and there's the tree has grown into this huge tree, and there's all this growth, and there's a fucking chicken and another bird flying.
Huh. I don't know. Maybe they were in sort of cryo sleep too.
Well, okay, but here's my thought. You're going to another planet.
Mm-hmm.
This is the very definition of bringing invasive species with you.
Well, you are an invasive species too, though.
That's true, but how do I know that a chicken isn't going to fuck up the total environment? Like, I don't think you would actually take... It makes me wonder where they got the seed to plant the tree. Why are you bringing tree seeds? Does the planet you're going to not have its own trees?
Yeah.
Well, how did you pick this planet?
They never. That's the one thing about the movie. Well, there's many things about that movie, but the one thing about that movie, they never really explain what the world is. I think it's like, oh, it's a place with breathable oxygen. Let's go there.
Yeah.
And they don't really have any other sort of,
And the movie suggests this is like, they've done this multiple times.
Yeah, like millions of planets even. Like they...
And they're still putting American chickens on the space. It makes no goddamn sense.
Yeah.
And I had never thought of that even when we sinned it, but it was on the other day and I was like, what the fucking chicken doing there?
I agree, though. That probably is a really complicated process to put a chicken in cryo sleep.
Or maybe that breakfast bar shoots out chickens as well as cereal and coffee.
Oh, I forgot about the breakfast bar that does everything.
Yeah, it's basically a replicator from Star Trek.
Yeah, that fucking thing pissed me off so many times, that little breakfast thing. Oh, you can't have anything except this one thing. And it's like, could you just tell him what he can have instead of showing all the different things?
Yeah, why can't you just highlight the buttons that are on limits so the off limits ones can be ignored?
Right. Fucking dick.
Yeah, I know. You want to talk a little bit about composers?
Yeah, sure.
Because that is a very male-dominated
It sure is.
Yes.
Job in Hollywood. But there are some really good composers, and immediately I thought about Leslie Barber, who did the score to Manchester by the Sea.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a real sparse score. It's very understated and everything, but man, it's good. Mm-hmm. It really fits the movie perfectly. And I'd like to see more of what she can do. I don't know how long she's been in the game, but it seems like it's just so hard to crack that James Newton Howard and the Newton Boys and John Williams and not James Horner anymore, but like just Hans Zimmer, like this club of composers that get everything.
Yeah.
And when you hear somebody kind of new and interesting, it just makes you smile.
Well, I wrote down one you'll appreciate, and that's Wendy Carlos, who did The Shining and A Clockwork Orange.
Oh.
And oddly, Tron.
Interesting.
Those are three pretty iconic scores.
She did The Shining?
She did it says composer, The Shining, A Clockwork Orange, and Tron.
Wow, nice.
And even Tron with all that,
all
that computerized stuff and whatnot. So, I mean, and I'm not going to lie, I had to do some research to find some of these people because female composers are so rare, their names just don't roll off the tongue. But when I saw those three scores together, I was like, wow, why isn't she John Williams today?
No kidding. Clockwork Orange also, I mean, it's always remembered for the Beethoven's stuff in there, but the other score in there is really good, too.
Yep. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Good
I thought I'd
pick.
throw that one out.
Yeah, I like that.
And I've discussed before, guys, like the music of movies, a lot of times, unless it's just super, like, memorable to me, I don't usually pay much attention to music. I will bring up Rachel Portman, who's been nominated 3 times. She won for Emma.
Oh, really?
She got nominated for Chocolat and The Cider House Rules. Both of those are Lasse Hallström movies. But yeah, she a successful composer there. Now she hasn't been recognized in a long time. She does like millions of scores. I went through the IMDb thing and wasn't really noticing, like recognizing many of these pictures and everything. But some of them you're like, what, really? Oscar-winning composer is doing that shit? I mean, you get the same thing with like a Hans Zimmer or somebody like that. Sometimes you look at Hans Zimmer and you're like, oh, really? You did, Fist Fight?
Does Fist Fight even have a score?
I'm sure it does.
Well, the only other one, as far as music goes, you can't discount the impact that Alison Krauss had on "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, that's a good point.
Now, that was T-Bone Burnett that put that whole soundtrack together and everything, but she was absolutely the most featured voice and talent on there with the Siren Song and just I'll Fly Away and all that stuff. Man, it's great.
She's awesome.
Angel. I want to marry her.
That's still the best. Like we blew it out this year where the Predators went to the finals with all these country stars singing the national anthem. But like 10, 12 years ago, Alison Krauss and Union Station did my favorite anthem ever.
You know, it's funny. You're the second person who has said that, and you would think I'd be able to find that.
You can't find it.
and I can't, and it makes me sad because I do not have that experience.
It's like a dirge. It's like a Civil War era mournful version.
Really?
Yes. It was slow on harmony, but had some minor notes layered under. It's one of the, and again, I've probably lost 12 hours Googling for this thing. It does not exist on the internet for some reason.
I mean, surely somewhere somebody's got a recording of that.
Surely. Don't call me Shirley.
That's right.
I was watching Airplane and Airplane 2 yesterday on an IMC. It's like, I want to know everything that's happened up until now. Well, first of all, the Earth cooled.
Steven Stucker, man. That guy's great. I don't know if you guys have any others to mention, but I am going to mention as far as writing is concerned, Tina Fey.
Oh, nice.
Please,
yes.
Tina Fey, with Mean Girls, was one of the funniest movies I've seen in the last 15 years or so. It still holds up, I believe.
Yeah.
That's a great movie. I'm surprised she hasn't done more screenplays like that over the years.
No kidding.
But she did get heavily busy in 30 Rock. 30 Rock is one of the funniest shows that you'll ever see. It's one of the wittiest and one of the and it carries it on with Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah.
That has the same kind of humor. I have never had to rewind sitcoms more often than with 30 Rock and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, because they'll lull you into this, like, here's some normal dialogue, and then just out of nowhere something will come up, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what did she just say? Because it'll cut away, and the other person's already talking. You're like, did I hear that right?
Well, and she also was the head writer at SNL during one of the best eras of SNL.
Yes.
So I think she's already iconic as a writer, and she's what, 40?
She's in her late 40s at this point.
Okay, so she's got a lot ahead of her.
That was the golden. Wasn't that around? That was Amy Poehler was on there. Will Ferrell was still around
before
SNL,
Will Ferrell
right?
had left.
There's apparently a cast, a group of people who came in right after 9/11, and I believe Tina Fey was one, and Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon and all those guys.
God damn, that was a great cast.
It was a great cast.
Came in right after that, and they said their first episode was addressing that or whatever. So, but I think she was in that era. She might have been before, may have been slightly before. I'm not sure. But.
Yeah, man, that's good. I mean, the ones that are on there now are perfectly fine. We'll probably look back in 10 years and say this was fantastic, but I don't think so.
Yeah. That's the easiest conversation to have. Pick an era from SNL and say, not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody has that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just that everybody's era when they think it was great is different.
Yeah.
Right. So do we have anything new to say about Nature Box?
I do. I have been cheating on my favorite snack, a new snack. My aged cheddar pretzels, sourdough pretzels that I love so much. They've been supplanted.
Oh, yeah?
By the mini peanut butter oatmeal cookies.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
If you have not tried these, they are basically crack cookies. And once you eat the first one, you're going to be like, I don't know if I want to eat anything else the rest of my life. Like, this snack it's triumphant, and it has changed my life. I have ordered 3 bags recently. I'm not going to lie.
Man, these guys at Nature Box can make a cookie, can't they?
They really can. They got me with those mini crispy snickerdoodles a couple weeks ago, and I was kind of expecting the same kind of thing with these peanut butter, but they're soft and they fall apart in your mouth. So peanut butter and oatmeal is just really good combination.
That's good stuff.
I had one of those things with the key lime cookies that they sent here, and it was like, all right, I'm going to get a few of these cookies, and I will be good with that. And you eat the 4 cookies or whatever, and you're like, I was not good with that.
I need more.
I need to get more now. And then sometimes you're like, you know what? I'll wait 24 hours. It'll be like tantric to,
Jesus. We've now killed Jeremy.
Oh my God.
But we're going to continue with the Nature Box side without him. We can clean that up later.
Yeah, no.
But
there is something enjoyable in life and with snacks about depriving yourself a little bit so that when you actually do go back, it's extra good.
It's a flavor explosion in your mouth.
I would never have quite called it tantric, but I see the parallel. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
That's right.
And I'm completely lost now. You have to carry it, Barrett.
Man, I'm into cracking the nuts. And last night, got a little hungry, went to bed a little early. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to kind of chill. And brought up a bag of those garlic pistachios.
Oh, my God, those are good.
And woke up this morning to shells just littered on my nightstand.
Yeah. You're like Leslie Nielsen in The Naked Gun, where he opens up the door and there's like all the peanut shells, like basically blocking his way out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Those get very, very addictive. So if you're a nut guy, oh man, they got good nuts.
Man, every box I order, I get a bag of the salted roasted cashews, just straight up salted roasted cashews, and they're the best cashews I've ever had. I don't even like my mother-in-law. God bless her. She'll always buy me either mixed nuts or cashews at Christmas time as just like a small gift. Somewhere 10 years ago, she got convinced I loved cashews. I don't know why, and they always go uneaten. Cashews. A cashew's an okay nut. It's not as good as a peanut.
Yeah, it's the J.C. Penney of nut.
Yeah,
that's
it's
right.
The Uncle Cracker of nuts. I'm going to be honest. 2 days ago, I came up with the idea to call something the Uncle Cracker of something, and I've just been waiting for an opportunity. And you gifted it to me.
It's so perfect, isn't it?
It really is, because Uncle Cracker is exactly what a cashew is. Okay, harmless, nothing you're really going to... But these from Nature Box, I can't get enough. I keep going back to them. I don't know, they put an addictive chemical in it. Makes you crave it nightly.
And if you want to get snacking like us, just go to naturebox.com/SinCast. You get 3 free snacks with the first order, man.
That's actually, somebody tweeted me the other day with that deal, their first order was like $10.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's a good deal.
It is. Sign up, get snacking, it's good stuff.
Yeah, naturebox.com/SinCast. 3 snacks free in your first order.
Promo code SINS.
Yeah. Join us on the snacking adventure.
That's right.
I'm going on an adventure.
You guys ready for questions?
I'm ready.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth. I'm listening.
Let's do it.
Okay. What are some movies and or TV shows that you refuse to watch, and for what reason do you choose not to watch them? For example, this listener refuses to watch any movies in the Fast and Furious franchise because after seeing one clip from Furious 7, I've already sat through all the fucked up physics that I can handle.
Good on them.
By the way, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. It's one of the few things that can make me laugh out loud, and you've actually made me look forward to Mondays. So thank you so much for that.
Awesome.
What do you guys think?
I've never seen an episode of NCIS anything.
That's a good one.
And I like me some Mark Harmon.
Uh-huh.
But it just always looked like military CSI.
Yeah.
And CSI was only really fun for me for about half a season before I got tired of that shit. Before it started spreading to other cities like NCIS has done. Yeah. I have no interest in NCIS. It helps that it's a network show. There's almost nothing about it you could tell me that would make me want to watch it. But it basically looks to me like Criminal Minds, CSI, like everything rolled together, only this time they're wearing military uniforms. Hey.
Yeah.
I could give a rat's.
So if it was on a TV, like you would go out of your way to avoid that TV?
Yeah. I mean, now if I'm at the shop waiting on my car and there's 5 people in there and I can't change the channel without being a dick and it's 98 degrees so I don't want to go outside, I may tolerate it being on the screen. But if I have the power and means, I will remove myself from that equation. I don't need any of that in my life. It's not poison. It's just unnecessary filler. It's like empty calories. And I prefer my empty calories to be really raunchy, like Real World.
Oh, yeah. Sir, can you please turn that off? It's offending me.
Anybody mind here if I change this over to the news or Home
the Real World?
Yeah. There's almost nothing I won't watch. I mean, there's not anything I've designated as I will never watch that. As far as, I mean, you're about to come up with one that I definitely pushes my, I feel like we're going to end up having to watch that at some point though. But and I came up with a sort of a funny one, like Paul Blart Mall Cop. Like, I don't need to watch that, right? I know it's not going to be good, but I've seen so many stupid comedies. I could see myself watching Paul Blart Mall Cop.
Kevin James is charming, man. I don't care if his movies are terrible. Like, I like the guy, and so I would watch Paul Blart.
Yeah, so I would find a way to watch that, even though I know it's terrible and everything. There is one particular thing, though, that I thought of, and I can't even remember if these were supposed to be movies or if they're just cult video type things, but Faces of Death.
Yeah.
I remember in middle school, people coming and telling me about Faces of Death, and I know, and from what I understand, they are fake deaths, or a lot of them are, or whatever. Still, even if it's in any way close to being realistic, I don't really have much tolerance for that kind of violence or death or whatever. I made a really big mistake of watching that dude in the 80s who killed himself on camera, the gunshot and everything. I made a really big mistake of that because I thought that the cameras would pull away, and they don't. And you just sit there and you're like, oh, well, that was fucking awful. I'll never forget it. So I don't need to see, like, stuff like that. So,
and yet they made a whole movie called 8mm about that shit.
Yeah, they did.
I saw that.
Well, I did too, but I regretted it.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
It's just one of my many Nicolas Cage regrets.
Yeah.
That was also the premise of Donnie Jep's movie, The Brave.
Oh, yeah?
That I think he directed that. It was
really?
him and Marlon Brando. And Johnny Depp, I'm going to say it wrong now on accident, he actually plays a Native American guy that agrees to be in a snuff film to pay off his family.
Oh, the Lone Ranger?
Yes, the Lone Ranger. Yeah, exactly. That would be a much better movie than what we got from
absolutely.
But it was also famous for not being able to purchase on DVD or Blu-ray for ages. I think it is now.
Yeah.
Faces of Death.
Yeah.
What do you got? I'm curious now.
Human Centipede.
Oh, yeah. No interest.
I got no interest. So shit that is gross just for the sake of being gross.
Yep.
I have no interest. I'm not going to ever watch Two Girls, One Cup.
Right.
It's just not going to happen for me. Good for you for making it. It's hilarious. The reaction videos and all that stuff. I can't bring myself to do it. I can't bring myself to watch Human Centipede in just the context that it
what
is
about
presenting
the third
itself.
one, though?
Yeah, the third one I'm sure is much more palatable.
Well, and then there's the more along the sides of, I guess, mainstream, even though it really isn't, is Pink Flamingos. It's another movie I've never seen because I've heard of the gross stuff that's in it.
Yeah, no, I've seen that, and it's not pleasant. It's not a pleasant watch at all. I mean, that's when I guess I just add more of a tolerance for that. But and John Waters just has such a campy style that it's
right.
It's different in my head. I don't know, but I wouldn't watch it again.
But
sure.
Yeah, those are some movies that I guess I could put Pink Flamingos on that list because I've heard about it and I've heard that it's got a certain genius to it and everything. But you tell me that somebody eats feces, and I'm like, all right, I'm not down with that.
Yeah,
I know this is too harsh, and it's probably gone on too long, but I have a really good streak going of not having seen Love Actually. Because when it came out, it got so much praise from the mushy, gushy romance crowd that I was like, that's almost sickeningly sweet. I don't like ensemble movies like this very much anyway. And I just made up my mind not to watch it. And then a few years ago, I realized, actually might have been when we started this podcast, I realized I've never seen Love Actually. Yeah. I'm going to keep that going. I'm going to not watch it.
It's interesting because I would peg you as someone who would like Love Actually.
I probably would. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Because I
like
it
out of spite now.
There's a lot of like really good actors in it and everything.
Everybody is in that movie.
Everybody's in it. They're doing some nonsense, or they already have, where they did some sort of sequel reunion thing. Yeah. I saw a trailer for it. I don't know. They're not making a movie, and I don't even think they're making a TV series. They're just making some reunion thing. That's
cocktail party.
Yeah, something like that.
All the cast of Love Actually.
An excuse to
the internet goes nuts for Where Are They Now reunion type pics. Remember when all the Goonies posed a few years back?
Yeah,
the internet went crazy.
Didn't Josh Brolin have his outfit on?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's right.
All right, next question.
Hit me.
All right. Long-time listener, first-time SoundCloud commenter. Great.
Don't let it be the last.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to the question about California schools in this episode, and it got me thinking about movie settings. My question for the podcast is, what is your favorite setting for a movie in the real world that is not in America? I know you guys like to turn questions on their head, so I'll clarify. Thanks. When I say real world, I mean modern-day Earth.
Yeah, so no Martian for you, Jeremy.
Damn it!
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
You know what? There's two that came up immediately when I saw this question. Lost in Translation, which we've talked about already. Yep. Tokyo from there is like something out of just it's just a dream, man. Yeah. It's just everything about the big city and then all the little countryside places that she visits and everything. I'm totally down with that. I want to do all the stuff that Scarlett Johansson does, including hang out with Bill Murray.
Yeah. She's such a voyeur in that movie. Like,
yeah.
And she almost seems weirded out sometimes. Like she'll go into the temple and everything, and she'll see the kabuki woman and just kind of like look away, and then she calls her mom and says like, oh, I witnessed this thing and it was life changing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
She gets kind of working with that woman putting the flower arrangements together.
Yeah.
She just goes in and out of these things. It's so awesome.
So great. And then the other one I've mentioned before too is the Italian countryside in Stealing Beauty.
Yeah.
It looks so lush and beautiful and gorgeous. And it's funny when I first came up with Stealing Beauty, I was also thinking of A Walk in the Clouds, but I found out that was in California. But it has that same kind of vibe to it. I want to go to that place in California that looks just like Italy.
One of mine is The Sound of Music.
Oh.
It's one of the first films I remember as a kid knowing just from looking at the visuals that this was not America.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had never seen mountains like the one she's singing on. I had never seen architecture. Everything about the Austria this movie presents, even if it was filmed in L.A. for all I know, I have no idea. But it felt instantly like a different world, and I always appreciated that about the movie. My real answer is the beach. Because
I like that.
If this island exists, and I'm sure it does, the first half of this movie is riveting to me.
Mm-hmm.
This is a paradise. The water is so clean. They're living off the fat of the land. It's a commune, basically. But let's not forget the best part about this setting. Shit tons of weed growing on the other side of the island. All right, so between the beauty and the paradise and all the weed I could ever want, assuming I can, not get killed by the guys growing it, man, I'm there.
Do they have an arrangement worked out with the other side of the island
that
where
nobody else would come, and then Leo stirs it all up when he and his friends show up because they weren't supposed to? Somebody gave him the map. I guess it was.
Oh yeah, the Trainspotting guy, Robert Carlyle. Yeah.
And he wasn't supposed to do that, and of course Leo did it too. But he tells them when he got there, no, we didn't tell anybody, and so they keep the peace, and then the dumb idiots he gave the map to show up and get all murdered. Anyway, I would go there in a heartbeat.
That's a good. I like that.
And I'm guessing that's real world because you can't build a set to look like that beach. Now, it may not be as secluded or hard to find as they made it seem, but
it's Cabo.
It's Cabo, basically.
I'm a sucker for like any cold weather urban environment. I don't know why. But like the first part of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in the original, the Swedish version, Stockholm is presented as just this really cool, really sleek, really beautiful, urban environment. And for whatever reason, that just appeals to me. I am just really into like that kind of Scandinavian type of mentality, even though I've never been. And I'm also a sucker for any movie set in autumn in New York, because I think that's just like an idyllic
How about
area.
autumn in New York?
Except for autumn in New York.
But also New York is in America.
Well, fuck that.
Yeah.
We turned it on its head again.
Yeah, we did.
As he
That's
said,
That's what you get for trying to outfox us, questioner.
That's right.
Yeah, we just totally ignore the rules of the question.
Okay, next one. What movie's aftermath would make a great movie unto itself? Not a sequel per se, but the end of a movie's immediate consequences. Now, I love this example. For example, the end of Galaxy Quest comes to mind, where the Protector crashing into the convention and the discovery of actual aliens, the footage of Saurus being shot to clean up and all that stuff. That's a very interesting an idea.
Now, the question is about Galaxy Quest is that still unbelievable enough for people to think that it might not be
It was
alien?
a show, yeah.
Right. Because I think they do believe it's just all part of the...
They do,
even though they
but you have to believe they
through.
go outside later and look at the cars in the parking
But they
lot.
crash through. That's the other part of it that I would be like, well, maybe that was fucking aliens because they crashed. But I came
My
up...
car's fucked.
Yeah, that's right. I came up with a couple on this one. The first one is The Natural because he hits this home run to win The Division.
Yeah.
There's a World Series that happens after that. And
awesome.
and there's a part in there, like the movie is not set up so that the plot is not set up so that they have to win the World Series. They have to win the division to stay where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're gonna move the team from New York, which that's insane enough. They're going to move the team from New York because I guess it's more money for the people who own it or everything. But there's a whole World Series that they play after that.
Yeah.
And it would have been nice to see how Roy Hobbs dealt with that. Did he even play in the World Series, considering that perhaps in his last at bat, that was his last energy he had because he was bleeding.
I was going to say, yeah, he's bleeding too, right?
He's bleeding. And the doctors told him, don't go out there and play. So it would have been interesting to see if he even plays. Now, it wouldn't be an interesting movie if he doesn't. But I would like to know how they fared in that World Series.
Yeah,
that's a good call.
The other one that I came up with was Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah.
I applaud that choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we have on a couple occasions on this podcast wondered what happened once she's out there in the real world and everything. The Turing test is interesting to me because I think there's already one issue with it, and that is if you're being told that it's a Turing test, then you start looking for flaws and all that, and then whether they pass or not is it would be kind of tainted, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that was the reason. Matter of fact, I think a true Turing test is that you don't know.
Right, it would have to be.
But that's why Oscar Isaac set that up at the beginning. He was like, I'm going to take this up a notch by letting you know that this is AI, and then we'll see what happens afterwards.
And that's what I feel like for her when she's walking around the streets and everything. Like, nobody is doing an active Turing test unless they're a psycho. Yeah. Not going around going, see if this guy passes snuff.
That'd be great.
So I feel like she's easily going to blend in and have no problems doing all that. Even if she malfunctions in some way, that's just going to be crazy people doing crazy things, right?
I think that would be the end of human civilization. I think that would be the continuation of that, because that's singularity.
Yeah.
If she has that knowledge, then she's going to pursue that exponentially until it's all AI and wipe out all the humans.
Yeah. So
I would totally watch that.
So yeah, it would be very interesting to see how she, incorporates after, getting into the real world and everything. So
she's working at a Waffle House.
I wouldn't mind just a awkward, road trip movie following her as she learns about America and meets people. Like, not even really like a sci-fi thriller, but just kind of like a quirky. Anyway, one of my answers is going to change the genre a bit too. But first thing I thought of was Fight Club. Mm-hmm. Fight Club ends great.
Yeah.
But what the fuck happens after that?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure they just succeeded and made everybody equal monetarily, and that's going to lead to The Road pretty quick. Right? Like, we're going to tear each other's throats out.
Although I always wondered about that at the end of Fight Club. By destroying the buildings, they've somehow...
Yeah.
How does that destroy all the wealth?
It was 1999, though.
This was before cloud computing, and I think you could argue that the servers might have been in that building.
Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense.
The one I really want to talk about is Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines.
Yeah.
Which I think has one of the best endings of any of the Terminator movies, where they get to this bunker that they thought was a way to stop the nuclear launch, but Claire Danes' dad lied. He knew it was going to happen, and he just wanted them to get to the bunker for safety. So now they're in this ancient bunker with all this old computer tech that still works, and they get a radio message at the very end of the movie, and you're like, this is how he starts to become John Connor. But there's nuclear fallout everywhere. And I honestly don't know enough science to know how long, but I know nobody can go outside for a while.
Yeah.
So whoever he's talking to on the radio, he's going to be in this bunker with Claire Danes for a good 8 years solid before he ever meets another human being. And I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see two people trapped in a bunker who have been hating each other the whole movie. And how do they cope with this new situation?
And we've seen everything around that.
Yeah.
Like everything. We saw Terminator Salvation. We saw, where he's in the midst of it, but we never see how he creates it.
Yeah.
It would be a great movie.
He would have to use the power of his voice. He would have to be such a good speaker, like those old school radio preachers, or JFK back when he beat Nixon. He'd have to be such a good orator to not only rally these people together, but to end up as their leader. I just kind of want to see that develop with some of the comedy and fighting just from the closed quarters and the old tech, and like maybe the microwave they probably don't have a microwave because it was built in like the 30s or whatever. But anyway, I'm fascinated by that. I've actually thought about this before. I would love to see that.
Now that's a movie that totally should be made.
I agree. We need a Terminator movie that's not actiony.
Yeah, right? I mean, instead of Genesis, you could give us that. I am totally watch that.
Yeah, I am comfortable saying that I'm smarter than James Cameron.
There you go.
I've said it many times.
That's right.
I have a T-shirt that says it.
Yeah. You'll say it again when we get out of this podcast.
Exactly.
You cannot stop hearing about how smart you are.
I want to see the world rebuild after something like Snowpiercer or the Stand miniseries based off the Stephen King book. Anytime like you've gone through this trauma and the dust settles, whether it's nuclear, whether it's virus or whatever it is, I want to see how civilization starts from ground zero, because it's not from ground zero. Every step of civilization, the culmination that we're in right now, is based on people starting of having no knowledge. If you had to reset, you still have that knowledge. Yeah. So you're not really going from zero. Can you make it better after hitting the reset button? And that's the kind of shit that I would really be interested in. Do you prioritize infrastructure? Do you even go into politics? Do you do this kind of thing or that kind of thing? How do you start with all the knowledge in the universe that you've been in?
Yeah.
Good call.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Man.
How do they repopulate the species with a grown woman and a small child?
All right, I got an issue with that in Snowpiercer. There's got to be other survivors on that train.
Yeah, either on the train or even out in the world, because that's what I always thought the animals at the end represented, was that something survived. Surely humans have too. Now, it could just be bleak and they're the only two left and there's no way to repopulate the earth, really. But I always thought that was it a polar bear? Yeah, it's a polar bear that they see at the end. I always thought that represented that there were possibly humans that, maybe found a bunker or something like that.
Or just life that we didn't realize was out there.
Yeah.
I think it hints enough at that. I was just like making that joke.
Well, I mean, they get killed by the bear, I assume.
Yeah.
But no, if they could survive all the way up in the front of the train where it hit all that, collision business, then there's got to be somebody in the back or in the middle.
I assume you're right. I know what baby tastes like.
That would have been great in Spider-Man Homecoming if he just showed up in his Snowpiercer. Says, I know what baby tastes like.
Your bodies are changing.
That's right.
Well, we talked about scores earlier. Let's talk a little bit more about scores, because I like this question. Can you guys talk about your favorite lesser-known scores? One of this person's is the opening theme from Raging Bull by Pietro Massigni.
Some Italian name, which is played during the shadowboxing intro credits. What do you think?
Man, I'm all over this shit.
Yeah.
Going back to Waterworld.
Oh, yeah.
The score is 10 times better than anything you might like about that movie. It's adventurous. It feels like a warped version of a pirate piece of music. It's a great piece of score. Fucking love it.
Nice.
And then the other one I had was Heart and Souls. Again, I pimped this movie. It's still truly underseen. But at the very end, when they get to the guy's farm, it does this swell. Do, 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 do. I just freaking love it. I guarantee you the question asker has probably not paid much attention to either of those scores. That was scored by Mark Shaman.
Oh, yeah.
Worked on the South Park movie.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So there's pedigree there, too.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, I love this question. I could answer this question every week.
Maybe we should come back to it. You know, as much love has been heaped on Ghostbusters over the years, I think the score is overlooked.
Yeah.
And it's got so many different themes to it because it's and it's Elmer Bernstein, but he's got such a quirky, cool, the whole thing, start to finish, even outside of the pop music stuff, Ray Parker Jr. stuff, is just so much fun. And I listened to it just independent of the movie, and it's jazzy and just cool as hell. I love it.
Awesome.
When you mention Elmer Bernstein, I'm going to mention him for Airplane because score is perfect. And I remember, I think I saw this either in the commentary or one of those, documentary type things or whatever. They're making a movie that doesn't cost very much at all. The Airplane. And they somehow get this legendary composer guy to do the music. And he not only does it, but he takes it, quote unquote, seriously enough to make it perfect for that movie.
Yeah.
And
because the music almost has to feel like it's from the movie they're spoofing.
Yeah.
And
it's that the thing that I always remember from Airplane is like that dun 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 dun. All that. It's always great. It always seems to punctuate every single thing that is going on through the movie.
Yeah. I just saw it yesterday. You're totally right. Good call.
I actually have a fully forgotten composer. Alan Silvestri.
Yeah.
Did one of the most iconic scores of all time with Back to the Future. Da, 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 all the Back to the Future movies.
Yeah, and basically a mainstay with Zemeckis.
Yep.
Almost all of his movies.
Yeah, he did Contact, actually, and did The Quick and the Dead, and it really had a nice career, and then just fell off the face of the earth. He was still working, but didn't do anything recognizable for quite a while. And he did The Avengers and is now working on Infinity War, and I think did one of the Captain America things. As we've talked about before, do you remember anything about the Avengers score?
No, that's the problem. We could even play a game. You could play a snippet of any Marvel movie from the MCU, and I would have difficulty placing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that includes the new Spider-Man Homecoming score, because I feel like they did to Giacchino a lot of what they do to these directors like Edgar Wright or whatever, where they sort of try and put you in a box. And so, yes, we'll let you play with that classic 70s theme, but only for the start of the movie, and then we want a score that sounds like Ant-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
anyway, now that's the one thing that DC's definitely got on Marvel, because each of their superheroes has a recognizable
I love
theme.
the Superman theme, the Man of Steel. Anytime I hear that, even in Batman v Superman, I think it's very subtle, but I love it.
Yeah, and the Wonder Woman theme is
it's gotta
awesome.
you gotta have something memorable. I don't understand why they don't get that with the MCU. It's like the score's an afterthought.
I know.
It's really sad.
It's crazy. All right, last one, and one of the funnest ones ever. If you were given the opportunity to sing any song with any band or artist, what song would you choose? And who would you sing it with?
I'm going to tell you right now, I've always wanted to sing Hunger Strike by Temple of the Dog.
Wow.
And I've always wanted to do both Vedder and Cornell.
Can you hit that?
If you give me some practice, I could hit some Cornell.
Wow. I can't hit any Cornell.
Now, serviceable Cornell.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do like Cornell.
Well, nobody can do Cornell.
No. But if you gave me give me I don't know, how long does it take to be good at something?
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours.
I'm going to Ryan Gosling this bitch.
But there's no song that I have sung along to more than probably Hunger Strike.
That's
just
awesome.
because, especially the Eddie Vedder part is easy. I mean, you just do Eddie Vedder is no problem. But I've always been like, well, Chris Cornell has the one at the beginning, and then he's just sort of like back and forth between Vedder after that or whatever. So he gets his one big moment, and then Vedder takes over. But I've always wanted to do it because it's a powerful song, and I feel like it would have been There's that band that goes around called My So-Called Band or whatever.
Oh, 90s cover band?
Yeah, they're 90s cover band, and I've seen them twice, and I'm wondered if they've ever done that song. Like, it would be perfect if they could get somebody who sounds like a tiny bit like Chris Cornell and just do it. And like, I would fucking do it. I guess,
if anybody's listening,
that's right.
Give me
some time to practice, and I will hit both of them, man.
Man, you forget how much range Cornell had.
Oh, yeah.
Because actually, Say Hello to Heaven came on the radio the other day. That's from that same album, right?
Yep.
And man, towards the end, he's hitting notes Mariah Carey would blush at. Like, he's like, Say Hello to Heaven! It's really up there. And I'd forgotten all about that. That's an awesome pick.
Yeah.
I knew my answer immediately. My favorite band to see live, Guster.
Nice.
Yes.
Why is it my favorite band to see live? Well, first of all, their music's fun and good, but they usually get wasted during the show as well.
Nice.
And the more wasted they get, the more fun they have and the more they experiment. Like, they let the drummer come out and sing and he can't carry a tune. And I would choose probably either Amsterdam, which is my all-around favorite song of Guster's, or Fa Fa, which is the most rockinest, buildnist party song of theirs.
Yeah.
But I read that question and literally was typing before I finished reading it.
You had written that answer, and one of the songs that came up in my head was "Come Downstairs and Say Hello." Was another one that I would want to sing or whatever. And I was like, let's not make this Guster centric here.
I probably told this story before, but I love this story. I went to see Guster in Nashville at the 328 back when it still existed. And John Mayer opened for him, and I'd never heard of him. The next year, Guster was opening for John Mayer when he came through town because he had released that album that blew him up. Music is weird, man. If you're a band, you probably most bands, unless you're Taylor Swift or somebody on the high end of the spectrum, most bands probably switch off between being the opening act and the non-opening act, depending on how successful your last record was.
Isn't that sort of what happened with Guns N' Roses and Metallica? Although Metallica, I don't think has ever been an opening band or whatever, but the Guns N' Roses would always come out and just steal the show or whatever. And
so they did their big show or their big tour in 91 or 92 when Use Your Illusion came out and the Black Album had come out, and they actually alternated the headlining spot. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I've seen that show many times, and they're pretty equal, man. Metallica was fucking like on fire. Well, they're literally on fire.
Yeah.
Point. But then Guns N' Roses was just at their peak, man. So yeah, no, that would be a great show to see live. And then Beastie Boys actually opened for Madonna one time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
By the way, I just saw The Rocker yesterday
Yeah.
you were talking about, which deals with the whole, like, he's not going to open for the band he used to be in that kicked him out.
Right.
He's got too much pride. Anyway, I don't know why I'm bringing that up.
I would want to sing this song called, and the band played Waltzing Matilda. From an Irish punk band called the Pogues.
Oh yeah.
The Pogues, I guess, were most famous for their Christmas song, Fairy Tale of New York. But they had this album called Rum, Sodomy, and the Lash that is just an amazing album. It really blends like traditional Celtic type of music with like modern day punk, or modern day for the 80s at that point. But then the band played Waltzing Matilda is this old ballad with kind of a million verses to it. And their lead singer, Shane MacGowan, similar to Guster, was notorious for getting absolutely smashed before shows. And he didn't have the best voice in the first place. So if you go out there, first of all, it's a recognizable tune. It's fun to sing. It's like a drinking song. And probably couldn't fuck it up too much more than Shane MacGowan did. So that'd be my pick.
Nice pick. I like it.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week. Just keep going to SoundCloud and giving us your thoughts.
Hey, we've gotten a lot of these questions, by the way, from SoundCloud and email. So keep that coming, man, especially the SoundCloud comments. They're easy to kind of access, and we can kind of go through those quick. We try to answer as many of those as we can. And we do have our subreddit that's always available that has a specific question thread.
Yeah, every week.
So go to that too. We'll look at it all, and we'll find the best of the best. You guys are good questioners.
Love, of course, everybody here in the United States that gives us things. But I find it particularly intriguing when we get these people from other countries who listen to us and everything. That's exciting to me.
Yeah.
Huge in Belgium, man.
Yeah, we are huge in Belgium. But anyway, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkins and Jeremy Scott and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page.
Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I think we have mentioned all the women worth talking about.
Every
in Hollywood.
woman. If we didn't mention it on this podcast, they are dead to us.
Yeah,
We will never return to this topic.
That's right. We'll
about.
never return to this topic ever. Pubic library. Isn't it public? I changed it.
Music professor.
What was that from? The Pubic Library?
It was a Saturday Night Live sketch from like 1990 or 91 or whatever, where it's like some sort of fun with computers or whatever, and there's all these kids and around a computer, and he gives the kids like the one kid gives his friends like this brochure, and it says Pubic Library on it. It's like, yeah, the Pubic Library, and he's like, isn't it public? And he goes, yeah, it is, but I changed it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my darlings. Oh, oi. Oh, I. Excuse me. Oh, didn't he just pee?
I think he did.
What do you think he's doing now?
If he's doing more peeing, it reminds me of there's a Robot Chicken where there's a Transformers thing, and like Optimus Prime at the end of this big battle, he's like, "Excuse me, guys, I gotta go to the bathroom," and he goes off, and then he comes back, and he's like, "Anyway, kids, wait a minute, I gotta go back," and then it's like, and then he keeps going back and everything, and then the next scene, he's gone like 4 or 5 times during this whole like lesson learned type of thing. And the next scene they cut to, he's in the doctor's office, and he's like, "I didn't know that going to the bathroom going to the bathroom so many times could be a bad thing." And then it's like a whole thing about check your prostate and all this other stuff.
Remember, kids.
Always check your prostate. I'll let Marissa Tomei do it because she's hot, right?
Yeah, I heard she's hot. I'd give her an extra slice of rice pudding.
That's right.
Slice.
They come in slices, right?
You remember when Tom Green had testicular tumor or something like that?
Yeah.
And he created this whole PSA song about feel your balls.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. I think I heard about it. I never saw it.
It's like, hey kids, rub your balls,
Yeah.
squeeze your balls.
We are
tease your
talking
balls.
about a guy who was in a movie called Freddy Got Fingered.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right, man.
Mm-hmm.
Daddy,
was-
would you like some sausage? It's the only funny moment in the movie, and it was in the trailer.
As the cat's paw goes underneath the door.
He's like, I want some nature box.
I do want to know what they're looking for there. Like, please, sir, may I have some more?
I'm looking for like the secret latch. That's
Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding that when a cat confronts a closed door, anything could be behind it.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
if they were just in that room
yeah.
and then ushered out. And like cats are obsessed with closed doors. They want, at least mine are. Every single one of them will go up to this one closet in my house at least once a day and paw at the door, paw at the handle, ask to get in. You open it up and it's just luggage and coats. And they're like, oh, why the fuck did I want to get in here? And they go away. Cats are dumb. Once the door closes, they forget everything.
They don't have object permanence.
No, I guess thanks for making me sound dumb by making yourself sound smart.
All right. We're touching. We're having a good time. We're probably dicks anyway. Somehow, some way, we're dicks.